I go a whole lot deeper than I went today, trust me. It's very interesting. It's very knowledgeable. I don't know it all. I bring people on with the knowledge, and then I learn basically during the show at that time. You know, it's just fascinating. But SmokehouseStudios.net, that's my website. I've got the links to all the podcast places you can go. But I don't know how many of you here have listened to the show when the Friendly Bunch came on, called Winning the Battle is the name of the show. If you haven't heard it, you ought to. It's awesome. I don't know how many down the list it is. It may be 10 or 15 by now. But it's called Winning the Battle. And we kind of touched on this, didn't we, Bobby? But I closed that program with what I'd like to close with you today. And if you haven't heard, if you've already heard this story, just bear with us. It's a true story. In 1925, in Nome, Alaska, there was a diphtheria outbreak that hit. Now, in 1925, it was the only year on record prior to and even after to this day. That one year in 1925 was the worst winter that Alaska has ever known. When Alaska has 30, 40 below temperatures with 8 feet of snow, that one year they had 60 to 80 below with about 10 to 16 feet of snow. And there was a diphtheria outbreak in Nome, Alaska. And they were running out of serum. They had the serum that could cure it, but they were running low, and it was spreading like wildfire. Interesting concept today, how we've got a COVID running around, but I digress. And they were running out of serum. Now, Anchorage, 1,000 miles south, they had plenty of it. But with all the snow and the cold temperatures, the trains couldn't run. Planes couldn't fly because it was too cold. There was no way to get that serum from Anchorage, Alaska to Nome, and the people were dying. The telegraph wires, though, they were still up, and they were do-do-do-do-do-do-do. They were a CW to everybody. We need prayers. We're dying. Word got to Coolidge over in D.C., and Coolidge called a national day of prayer for Nome, Alaska. Well, the word reached England, and the Queen of England even called for a day of prayer for Nome, Alaska. Running out of serum and we're dying. A gentleman by the name of Charlie Olson, he was the head dog sled guy there in the entire state. He called through the telegraph wires his other dog sled depots between Anchorage and Nome, Alaska. He says, I got this crazy idea. Don't tell me that it's not going to work, because I know that. Don't tell me that we aren't going to make it, because I know that too. But people are praying, and they're dying. He said, could we load the serum here in Anchorage, Alaska, and then one team take it to the next depot, hand it off, and then that team take it to the next depot, hand it off. And could we just keep doing that and do all that we can? We'll give it a shot. So Charlie Olson, he loads up the serum and takes off to the first depot. In 4.5 days, 4.5 days, the dog sled pulls in to a depot 67 miles from Nome, Alaska. Charlie McCoy then was the one running the sled at that time. It was going to be picked up by a man named Gunnar Kaysen. And when Charlie McCoy pulled into that depot 67 miles from Nome, Alaska, Gunnar Kaysen came out. Charlie McCoy said, "Gunnar, it's over." He said, "We're not going to make it." He said, "I got 2 dogs frozen in harness. Our lead dog out there, he's wounded. He has a broke leg." Now, I don't know anything about dog sledding, but I do know that the lead dog is the most important dog in a dog sled. And without a lead dog, you're running blind. Without a lead dog, it was like following Bobby this morning to breakfast. Amen. I just had to. You get the idea. Without a lead dog, you're lost. So Charlie McCoy comes in and says, "Gunnar, it's over." And Gunnar says, "It's not over, Charlie." He says, "Man," he said, "we got 67 miles left. We got the strongest weather front that's moving in that we've ever seen. And you've got 2 of the highest peaks to cross before you get to Nome." Gunnar Kaysen, he said, "Charlie, switch out the dogs." So Charlie switched out the dog. He's like, "Gunnar, you don't have a lead dog." He says, "I got 1 dog that's been training." He's like, "Charlie, he ain't even ready on a easy day, much less what you're going to be facing." He said, "Charlie, go get Balto, hook him up." So Charlie McCoy went and got Balto, the untrained lead dog, and put him out there on the front. They loaded up the serum. And Charlie McCoy wrote in a journal that once Gunnar Kaysen took the sled, he said the most powerful words that I'll never forget. "Balto, hoop! Hoop!" And off they go. And in that journal, Charlie McCoy said, "I will never see my friend again. But he was the bravest man I have ever known." About that time, that third Balto came out. This storm front come moving in with 60-mile-an-hour winds and sleet and rain, snow blowing sideways. And Gunnar Kaysen disappeared in silence and in darkness. Today, they, in tribute of what these men tried to do in 1925, there is a race that is run once a year in Alaska. It's called the Iditarod, where a team of dog sleds team up and travel the same path that these brave men tried to go. The next morning, this feeble dog sled got to the last depot outside of Nome, Alaska. They had spilt. Gunnar Kaysen had turned over 3 times. He had spilt the serum 3 different times. He had 2 broken ribs. And he pulled into the last depot, and I guess word either didn't get to the depot or they had no idea when Gunnar was going to get there, because when he got there were no lights on. They were in bed. The dogs were not tied up. They weren't fed. It takes hours to get dogs up, get them fed, get them harnessed, get them conditioned to the cold, to get them to run. And Gunnar Kaysen knew he didn't have time. Balto, whoop! Off he went. Gunnar Kaysen pulls into Nome, Alaska the next morning. He was so frozen, he had to be peeled from the sled. And all he said was, "Did I make it?" word got to D.C., Gunnar, Kasem, and Balto were flown to D.C. He was given awards. And there is a statue of Balto that sits in Central Park in New York to this day in honor of what Balto did. The only statue that was ever honored for an animal. He was given all kinds of awards. And the reporters came to him and was like, Gunnar, how'd you do it? How'd you do it, man? Gunnar said people were praying. People were praying. And when you pray, things happen. And he said, I had what they needed. Folks, we have what this world needs. We are delivering now what this world needs. And I know it's a struggle. I know that we're hitting winds we've never seen before. I know that we're hitting snow blinds and blizzards we've never hit before on ham radio. But we're doing something about it. What are we doing? We're here today. Friendly bunch. Whoop! A New York Times reporter, as Gunnar Kasem was leaving, they said, what gave you the stamina? He said, my grandchildren live in the home. And I had what they needed. Our children, our grandchildren are suffering. They're dying. They're dying on our streets. They're dying in our schools. And we have what they need. We have what they need. Well, folks, believe it or not, I have come to the end of my speech. I thank you for allowing me to come. Bobby, I thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak to you. Hopefully this will give you a better idea of the enemy that we're battling and how with ancient technology we're warriors. And with ancient technology we have the weapon. And with ancient technology we're going to be written about in the history books. Thank you very much.
No, we're way from finished. Way. Gregory? Where'd they come from? Greg Martin. It's my pleasure, being the founder of the Friendly Bunch, to give you this certificate. This certificate says, Gregory Martin, KN4 NCL, thank you so much for being our keynote speaker. You're awesome. This is an awesome guy. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate it. The leadership and I, we've talked about you forever, and they were just thrilled that I said, hey, what about Greg Martin? Let's get him to be our keynote speaker.
I hope I didn't disappoint.
No. You did not. So anyway, everybody have a safe trip. If you're going home now, I hope you're going to spend the night at the Allegheny Inn. We're going to meet at about 5:30 or something to go to eat at Muddy Creek. We're going to try that and see what we think of it. And we appreciate everybody being here. And God bless you and have a safe trip. We're praying for everybody in this group. Thank you very much.